Have I told you about the tension of opposites, he says? The tension of opposites. Life is a series of pulls back and forth. You want to do one thing, but you are bound to do something else. Something hurts you, yet you know it shouldn't. You take certain things for granted, even when you know you should never take anything for granted. A tension of opposites, like a pull on a rubber band. And most of us live somewhere in the middle. Sounds like a wrestling match, I say. A wrestling match, he laughs. Yes, you could describe life that way. So which side wins, I ask? Which side wins? He smiles at me, the crinkled eyes, the crooked teeth. Love wins. Love always wins.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Kyle Krieger, and welcome to this session titled The Tension of Opposites. It's a study of a short passage in the book Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom, which happens to be one of my favorite books. For those of you who may not be familiar with me and my work, I teach 8th grade global studies at a charter school in the Twin Cities area of Minneapolis-St. Paul in Minnesota. I am also on the team and one of the co-founders of the nonprofit Lighthouse Educator Development and one of the hosts of the Value Adds Value podcast. Now, if you want to follow along with me on my social media, you can find me on Instagram at mr.k.inroom508, or you can find me on Twitter as it's Kyle Krieger. So either of those places are great to find me. At the end of it, I'll give you all the stuff where you can connect with me. But if you're watching this, you want to hit me on Twitter, hit me on Instagram, I would love for you to do that. So a little backstory of why I chose this session for this particular conference. So Carrie reached out. We've been a part of these conferences a few times now, and when she reached out, I happened to be reading this book, and it just really struck me as something that I wanted to share. It wasn't quite to the time when COVID-19 had gotten to be a real problem, but as I thought about it, it just seemed like the perfect thing to talk about in this situation. And now we are, you're watching this summer 2020. If you're watching it after, you most likely know what we went through. The school year for most teachers in the classroom with our kids ended in March. I know my school will not be back to the fall, and I'm even in a position where I'm worried whether or not we're going back to start the school year. So, but a little backstory on this particular book and its place in my life. I was graduated from college in 2008. I went to a small school in Minnesota called Winona State University. And it happened to be the very bottom of the downturn in the economy in 2008. Applied for, I have to say, over 100 jobs that summer out and didn't get any, only had one interview. And I wound up in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, substitute teaching. And I was substitute teaching in a high school. I believe it was a high school English class. I don't remember the exact details, but there's a made-for-TV movie that goes along with this book starring Hank Azaria and Jack Lemmon as Dr. Morrie Schwartz. And I was just enthralled by it. I went out and got the book like the next day after watching the movie, and I've read it once or twice a year for the last dozen years. And it always speaks to me. It does. And there's this one particular passage that I'm going to take you through in this presentation. So what I hope you'll take from this, I really hope that you'll have an appreciation that as teachers, we live in this area that's called the tension of opposites. I'm going to explain what that is in just a little bit. I really hope you'll be able to better recognize the tensions in your classroom, those situations that put you in this place. You will be more likely to extend yourself grace during the tension. And deep down, I really, really hope that you'll read this book. I really hope if you haven't read it, you'll read it. Or if you have read it, I hope you read it again. All right, so to start this presentation, you heard me read this page. And I want to focus on the highlighted paragraph that's right here, starting with the explanation for what the tensions of opposite is. And it says, life is a series of pulls back and forth. And I know that in our lives, we understand that this is the case, but it just struck me as so profound when I read it the first time, and it still strikes me as so profound, because I think I forget that we live in this space where there's all these competing desires and competing needs and competing tasks and all these different things that we have to do, and we're being pulled in all these different directions, especially as a teacher. I've got my rubber band here, and it just doesn't pull this way. It can pull this way. It can pull this way. It can pull all these different ways. It can fold over. It can do all those things. And as a teacher, we oftentimes, or at least I oftentimes, feel like I was mixed up and twisted in 1,000 different directions. But there are 3 more parts to this paragraph that I really want to focus in on, and just with the hope that you will have another tool in your bag to grow as an educator, especially when it comes to your emotional, your social health in this job that's really, really trying. All right, so it goes, life is a series of pulls back and forth. Then the first line that I want to focus on is, you want to do one thing, but you are bound to do something else. And boy, do I feel this a lot. There are things I want to do for my kids, but I'm bound to do something else. There are things I want to do for myself, but I'm bound to do something else. This happens all the time. And the really way we sum this up is, we face a lot of really difficult choices. And difficult choices doesn't mean that the consequences are high. It simply means that we have to choose oftentimes between 2 great things, or something that's good and really good, or something that's really good and great. So if you could right now, whatever you're writing on, whatever you're using to take your notes for these presentations, pause the video and answer the following question. What are the most difficult choices you have to make as a teacher? So the second passage that I want us to take a look at is, something hurt you, yet you know it shouldn't. And this is one that I'll say I really, really struggle with, and have struggled with over my career. It sometimes reminds me of that saying that hurt people hurt people. But I just recognize the times in my career when I was maybe not at my highest point, or wasn't feeling great about myself, or even if I'm just like right now having a bad day, and a kid says something to me that's totally benign, but I take it so personally, and I get so hurt, and I get hurt over things that I know are out of my sphere of control. I know there are things that have nothing to do with me. There's nothing I could have done to fix them, but it still happens. And I'm venturing a guess to say that it happens to you as well. So I'd like you to do the same thing you did with the last question. Write down an answer. Just take a second, pause, reflect on this question. When do you most often feel hurt as a teacher? And then the final sentence in this paragraph. You take certain things for granted, even when you know you should never take anything for granted. And man, is this a time where we have been we've been shown exactly what we've taken for granted. I mean, and this is both personally and professionally. If you're watching this summer, you've obviously felt it. You felt what it's like to be at home. You felt what it's like to not be able to see family. You felt what it's like to not be able to see your kids, to teach in your classroom, to have all those things. So in this time, I think it's a great time to really reflect on this question. So maybe even if you take a little extra time to reflect on this question, but pause the video and just answer the question, what do you most often take for granted as a teacher? So I'd like to bring it all together for you and just really reiterate what I hope you took from this. So we all face difficult choices that make us feel like we let others down. And it's something that as a young educator, I really struggled with, was how often I felt like I was letting people down. And as I've grown now 10 years in education, you start to understand that you can never make everyone happy, make decisions that are good for everyone. There is no silver bullet. There is no magic. This decision will do everything for everyone. So you have to make hard choices. You have to make sacrifices. You have to do what you think is right and do what you think is best, knowing that it's not going to be right or best for everyone all the time. And that's okay. Secondly, we all feel hurt. If you're not emotional in this profession, if you're not feeling hurt at times, whether it's hurt for yourself or hurt for your kids, I kind of wonder why you're in this profession. And I'm assuming if you're watching this, a part of this online conference, that you understand what I'm saying. Like, we all feel hurt. And we will all be hurt by kids, whether intentionally or unintentionally. It's kind of an unavoidable part of the job. And we all take things for granted. We all assume that the way things are always going to be, and that we're always going to have this kind of basic level of comfort. But we've realized that that doesn't happen. And, even especially us in the internet age, man, our internet goes down and things go bonkers. We can't try to figure out what we've got going on. But we all feel those three things. We all live in those three things. But the question I have for you, and the overall arching point of this session, is, are you learning from these situations? Are you learning from these situations? Because that's all that we can ask of ourselves as educators is, are we learning? Are we practicing what we preach? If you are learning, then you're doing your job and you're doing it well. And learning can look different. Maybe you're hurt just a little less. Maybe you understand a few more things are not personal and you don't take it personally. And hopefully we all take a few less things for granted going forward. And I hope you appreciate that you're going to have to make hard choices. But the thing I try to do is try to explain the why of those hard choices to the people who it affects. But like I said, the main point of this session and of this paragraph and what I put together for you is to ask you these questions so that you can learn from them. And not just learn from them now, but you could ask these questions of yourself all the time. And you can continue to learn in these situations. And again, if you are learning yourself, you are doing your job. You're doing a great job at it. And that's all you can ask of yourself. And that's all I can ask of you as someone who's in this with you. That's all I can ask of you, is that you continue to learn and you continue to grow. So again, what I hope you took, you appreciate that we live in the tension of opposites. As I just pointed out, you realize that we all make difficult choices, feel hurt, and take things for granted, all of which are okay. But I really hope that you believe in your ability to learn in these situations, and that in these times you will continue to extend yourself grace while you grow.
Have I told you about the tension of opposites, he says? The tension of opposites. Life is a series of pulls back and forth. You want to do one thing, but you are bound to do something else. Something hurts you, yet you know it shouldn't. You take certain things for granted, even when you know you should never take anything for granted. A tension of opposites, like a pull on a rubber band. And most of us live somewhere in the middle. Sounds like a wrestling match, I say. A wrestling match, he laughs. Yes, you could describe life that way. So which side wins, I ask? Which side wins? He smiles at me, the crinkled eyes, the crooked teeth. Love wins. Love always wins.
And I just love the way this section, this page ends with him saying love always wins. And if we can remember that as teachers, we're going to be doing great. So I want to thank you for being a part of this session, for spending some time with me. But more importantly, I want to thank you for being on this journey with me. I know so many of you that are watching. I follow you on Instagram. I follow what you do. A lot of you I have relationships with, and it means more to me than you could ever know. And if you and I are not connected personally, I would love to be connected with you personally and support you however I can, and really appreciate you for being on this journey with me. So if you want to find out more about the work that we do through Lighthouse Educator Development on our podcast, Value Adds Value, here are a few ways you can do that. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter. If you want to listen to our podcast, we're on almost every platform, but the best way I can suggest to find your platform is to go to anchor.fm/Value Adds Value. Otherwise, just put Value Adds Value in Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Google Play, Anchor, and whichever other ones. And if you want to get a bigger picture of what Lighthouse Educator Development does, you can head over to the ledproject.com, or you can just hit me up with an email, kyle@theledproject.com. So much love to you, so much love to you. I hope you have a great summer, and I hope you know how much I appreciate being on this journey with you, a part of this conference, and that you were willing to spend some time with me. So please know that I'm with you. Whatever you need, please reach out. I'll do whatever I can to help. But thanks for spending some time with me, and I hope to catch up with you real soon.